Welcome to Sex on the Floor podcast. This podcast was created to help educate the public about problems with sex and intimacy and how this is tied to both physical and mental aspects. Hosted by myself, Dr. Molly Hart, a passionate pelvic floor physical therapist and owner of Pelvic Balance Physical Therapy, and by Dr. Katie Schubert, a phenomenal sex therapist and owner of Cypress Wellness Center. We are here to have a good time. We're here to keep it real with you all and to educate along the way. I'm so excited for you to join us. We strive to help many relationships prosper in fun, safe, and healthy intimacy. While listening to the show, please remember that this information is not meant to diagnose or treat any medical conditions. Please speak with your medical provider for all things related to your healthcare.
Welcome back to Sex on the Floor. I am Dr. Katie Schubert here with Dr. Molly Hart and Dr. Emy Tafelski. And we are going to be talking with her about her new, goodness gracious.
New journey. Yes, it's a very interesting one.
Emy is trained also a sex therapist and is developing new things to focus on with her clients that are fascinating. So, Emy, can you talk a little bit about how you're branching out and what your new journey looks like?
Absolutely. I am shifting more into the coaching realm so that I can increase my impact with more people everywhere, because it's really my mission to increase authenticity in the world for women, which is a very simple way of saying the very long thing that I told you before, but
say it. So I asked before we started the episode, I asked Emy, I said, what are you wanting this episode to embody? And she said this beautiful statement. And so she's going to say it again in a different way, and it's going to sound just as perfect.
Yes. So it is my mission to increase authenticity for women in the world, and help them break out of the box and break free from the chains of who they've been told they should be, and really help them figure out who the fuck they actually are. And so that's a little bit of unwrapping chains of the culture around us, which has a lot to do with patriarchy, whether we call it that or not. But all those feelings that we as women often have of not being good enough, or having to be or do a certain thing instead of what really sets our hearts on fire, that it is my mission to help women set their hearts and souls on fire. And so that's what I'm here to do.
Why did you... I know that you were practicing, doing mostly sex therapy, right?
Yeah, like some half sex therapy, half regular therapy.
Okay. So what pushed you in this direction? Like when and why did you start thinking that women weren't doing the things that they really wanted to do, or represent who they authentically are?
This has always been my mission. I've just done it, with therapy clients. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit smaller work than what I want to do, right? Because therapy clients don't necessarily come and say, I don't know who I am. I want to, even though a lot of them really don't know who they are. And that identity work is what we do, right?
They're at a different point of change and understanding.
Yeah, exactly. But this has always been like the foundation of my personal mission in the world. My story begins when I was 25 and married to my first husband, and started to wake up every morning feeling like, man, this is going to be my life for the next 50 years. Like, how did I get here? Who am I? Why who just really waking up in despair. Like, my husband was a nice guy. He was a nice guy, which is why I married him, because I had had a string of not nice guys. But a nice guy wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And so I got divorced and spent 6 months in therapy, specifically looking at who am I? How did I get here? Like, who really am I? And therapy is so helpful, but it didn't go deep enough. And so the work that I'm showing up here to do now is more soul-based healing work.
Yay, I love that.
So my goal is to be a little deeper than therapy and a little more focused on soul work, which my PhD is in, a specialization in consciousness, spirituality, and integrative health. So I've spent 4 years looking at this through that lens, and that's kind of like the catalyst for making this shift now. Is like, here, I've got this degree, I've studied my own journey at length and written about it, and here we are.
I love it. So this is you going deeper and bringing people who are at a different, really spiritual maturity to where they want to go. Because you're saying, when I was working with clients, where they're at with their journey of change is fine, but not necessarily where you're wanting to start with people, because you want to do this like upper level work.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I get some therapy clients that are absolutely ideal for this work, but they're not that many, because exactly what you're saying is exactly correct. It's a different, they're at a different level of where they're needing change.
Yeah, I totally get that. Cool. Okay, so tell us more. I'm so excited to just like hear more from you, and loving your energy. Oh, yes. What, Katie?
Before you tell us more, but I think I'm going like 20 steps forward. But I also think that by saying this now, listeners maybe will better understand everything that you're about to say. So as you're talking, I'm thinking, this is amazing. And I also think that men in our society could benefit greatly from this, because men are so like bound by patriarchy as well, right? So I'm wondering if everything that you're about to say, the framework, the insights, the therapeutic modalities, all of it can also be applied to men, or if what you're doing can only be applied to women, in your opinion.
I 100% agree that patriarchy impacts every single person living in our culture negatively. Yes. Men, women, non-binary, everyone. And I've super enjoyed working with men in my therapy practice to do some of this identity work. The specific work I'm setting out to do now is with women and or non-binary, gender fluid folks, which doesn't mean that I won't be offering something down the road for men. To me, this is kind of where it's starting.
Yeah. I will say, though, if you are a male listener, if you listen to what Emy's about to say, the beautiful thing about it is you're going to gain more perspective and understanding of a female perspective or a non-binary perspective. So not a male perspective, or if you're treated like a male in society perspective. So I think it benefits everybody regardless, but who it's geared towards is not specifically for the male. Gender, correct? Yeah.
I mean, the specific work I'm doing is with women too, or non-binary folks too. So I think of the soul as a tapestry. And so we have like our own personal, each of us, all three of us, and whoever's listening, our own personal soul's tapestry, right? And so there are some threads woven into the tapestry that don't serve us, that aren't ours to carry. And I think a lot of them are woven in from the culture around us, from our trauma, from like our family of origin, etc. And so the specific work that I do helps guides people through a process to unweave those threads of patriarchy and to reclaim parts of the self that have been lost, to reclaim the sacred feminine that, well, I don't know, for a lot of us, we didn't know we lost, right? Because we've never thought of the feminine as sacred. So, I mean, that's a piece of like the reweaving process,
Yeah.
but it's almost like, to me, like we, starting with the women to do that work and helping them stand solidly in their selfness, almost it changes the system, like from the inside out. And then
Yes.
potentially that's where men come in and say like, huh, this is like uncomfortable. What can I do to change my discomfort or to help my discomfort or whatever?
Mhm.
Oh, for sure. I can I ask you, can you define in your words, because it depends on, you know, where you would look for this. What is your definition of patriarchy? And the way when you say that, when the listeners are listening, what are they gaining from viewing it from your perspective as you're talking forward?
So to me, patriarchy is a system that binds us all in a specific set of chains / agreements / ways we should be. It is a system that privileges mostly white men, but it doesn't mean that they're not also suffering, because it doesn't allow them either to be who they are, to feel their emotions, to step out of the box of what patriarchy says a man should be, right? Like we're all shoved into these boxes because the system tells us what that box should look like.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask you, I'm just getting like even more like rudimentary. So give like 3-5 examples, because I know what you mean when you say this, but give like 3-5 examples of this system and like some 3 to 5 key things that are these boxes that we're in.
I mean, if we look at like even just the structure of our political landscape in the United States, right? Like this is something super basic, right? Like, and super visual, right? If you look at Congress and you look at how many women versus how many men, how many people of color versus how many white men even, right? Like it's, the system has been set up to privilege certain people and,
Give more
for lack
power
of a better
to
term,
give more power to certain people. Yeah.
yes, give more power to certain people and less power to other people, women and people of color, and extra less power to females of color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll just say this, from my perspective, right? I feel like I was raised to be to exist in service to men, right?
Yes.
So like if I talk about sexuality, right? Like sexuality, the way I was raised to look at it was a way to be loved, a way to be found worthy, a way to service men, but not ever about my own pleasure, not ever about my own power, not ever about like being able to concretely say yes or say no, right? So it's like being raised up to believe that you are here as an adjunct versus as a fully equal human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm presenting at the clinical sociology conference in Tampa on Friday, and they wanted me to pick a topic to talk about. And one of the topic that the header for my presentation, it's never about sex, right? Because when clients come in to talk about sex, it's never about the sex. It's like, okay, well, I could just not be a sex therapist because it doesn't matter what I know about sex, because it all boils down to something else, right? You go over the sexual dysfunctions and the DSM, and they're all tied to gender and culture and, you know, patriarchy, all the things. So as soon as you start like picking away at those things, the actual issue comes up and you're like, oh, okay, well, you know, there's the issue. It's not about sex, it's about this other thing over here. So that's kind of what you're saying, Emy.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
Just curious, since there's us three on here, and Katie, I know you're super close with your mom. Was your upbringing like that when it came to sex as well, or was yours different?
Not, I mean, we never really, sex wasn't super discussed. Sexuality wasn't discussed. It was more about relationships, I think, which coincide with sexuality. But yeah, it was about the relationships. But you know, we're all like what Emy's saying, we're all brought up in this society, and it doesn't, I'm not sure it really matters what our parents tell us or don't tell us. It's, you know, we get the messages everywhere. We get them, you know, from TV, social media, our friends, our teachers, everybody
I think your like main upbringing though is so important. It's more what's the word I'm looking for? It's more impactful, I guess. It's more, were your parents together? Did your mom and dad, were they grown up together? Okay. And what about you, Emy? Did you come from a 2-parent household?
I did. And at the age of 15, I started praying that they would get divorced.
Okay. So I was curious because I'm listening to you talk, and that's why I wanted to hear your perspective, Katie. So I grew up in a household with just my mom. My mom kicked my dad out. And so I grew up with this badass dominant woman just kicking ass at life and doing it all. I never ever felt less than a man. I felt more than a man. I felt like women are fucking powerful because that's just how I grew up. And actually I'm realizing now, as my brothers, I have 3 brothers. I was the only girl. I'm realizing how much it's negatively impacting them because they don't really know how to be like, they had no example of a male, no good example in my life. And so they had my mom, but they're like not going to mimic what she did because they're male gender. And they're like, I'm trying to be a dad now. And I'm trying to be a man of my household. Like these are things I'm hearing them say. And I was like, God, that sucks. Like, I didn't realize I had this incredible role model and you guys did too, but it was a different gender than you. And so it's confusing for them. So it's just interesting. I've noticed with my patients who grew up with moms, like what I grew up with, I noticed they're so much more secure with themselves and so much more just like, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of not all, as long as they had a mom who was secure in who she was, I would say. And they were raised with that. So I was just curious how it's so interesting how people are impacted differently with their upbringing alone, regardless of like the cultural stuff going on. Okay, I'll shush.
No, that's that makes a lot of sense to me, right? Because yes, I can see how what I saw growing up versus what you saw growing up could make a significant different impact. And you know, as a therapist, I can kind of like follow that thread all the way back. Like, yeah, okay, so here's what I saw and here's what it created. And here's like the work I have to do to unweave that thread so that I can like get beyond that influence and really stand solidly in my own confidence and my own power.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, everyone's on their own little journeys of, what were we going to say, Katie?
I just thought that what she had just made mention of, I was kind of wondering where you start with clients, right, on this journey. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is that you look to see what their tapestry looks like now, and then maybe you ask them to identify, not in these words, but different words, I assume, like the threads that aren't serving them, and then you try to follow those threads back and figure out where they came from so that you can work to like pull them out.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think because so there's a lot of guided visualization in the work that I do and less like therapy talking, right? Because it's falling into the coaching realm. So I'm needing to differentiate it from therapy. But right. So it's guided visualization and less like talking about family history and more sort of like seeing in your own mind's eye, like where that thread comes from, where it goes, and literally seeing yourself unravel it. As to where I start, I have, I think you guys will put the link in the show notes, but I have a 5-day email challenge called the Soulful Spark. And the 5 emails are sort of designed to help you, they're journal prompts to help you kind of figure out what's not serving you and figure out where you're starting so that you can even just begin to do a little bit of the work yourself. So it's kind of, I start wherever, with whatever we identify first is the thing that's most standing in your way and most making you kind of knock on my door.
Yeah. I like it. I feel like there's so many questions I have. Go.
Are you having your clients start with those journal prompts, or is that just something else to get non-clients thinking about what you might be doing with them?
It's both. In order to start this unweaving coaching journey with me, there needs to be some pre-work, and it is very closely related to the 5 journal prompts, right? Like it's a little bit of introspection and a little bit of writing down some stuff so that we have a good starting point and can identify like, this is where we want to go in the amount of time we have, boom, this is, and then we can go there.
Okay.
Could I ask, and you don't have to do you as an example, but I would like, people love storytelling. Storytelling is a really easy way for people to understand things. So would you be open to storytelling even your experience with like small things in your tapestry and what you had to pull out and reweave? And if you don't want to do yourself because that's too vulnerable, then would you be able to share without giving away personal information, somebody else's story, so listeners can kind of understand?
I'm happy to share my story.
Okay.
I will have a book coming out in the next couple of months.
Okay,
so
cool.
I've written it all, but I think the clearest, most accessible one for me to talk about is so my mom died in 2017, which is sort of what part of the catalyst for this bigger change in my life, like shifting from therapy to coaching, like really wanting to broaden my message. She died, and I took about a year to really dig into this healing journey. And during that like 10 to 12 months, I did all of this unweaving and reclaiming work. And then the year after that, I studied it and wrote about it for my dissertation. So I'm very familiar with all the parts. But one of the things that stands out is that after she died, one of the ways that I grieved was to do a lot of baking. It truly felt to me like I felt very shattered. And so to bake was like to take parts and create a whole from them. So it was like externally doing the thing that my internal soul needed, right? Like I was just dust on the wind. So I could like bake cakes and cookies. And so I did a lot of baking of family recipes passed down from Germany from the, when my grandmother came here anyway. So it was a lot of baking.
I get that. Okay.
And it put me in direct opposition with a part of me that had been struggling with disordered eating for my whole life. Because this was giving me comfort. And at the same time, that part of me was like really getting agitated about eating lots of cookies and cake. So there was this struggle, and I had to really step back and sort of look at that part of me. And it was I've been in therapy forever, right? I fully believe in therapy. I love therapy, all the things. But I had tried to heal this for years and years and years unsuccessfully. So I during a series of visualizations, I finally saw that this thread of disordered eating sort of went back and wasn't actually mine. Like I could see the thread kind of coming out of my tapestry and leading back to like my mom's being or spirit or energy, whatever you want to call it. And so it was a huge realization to know, like, okay, wow, that's not really mine to carry. And so then I did the work of literally seeing it unweave and kind of releasing it, sending it away, which changed everything, changed my relationship to food, changed my relationship to baking, changed my relationship to my grief, just changed how I show up in the world. Yeah, it's made a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good example.
It always seems to me the most tangible.
Yeah. So part of the reweaving was this visualization and changing the story also behind like the messaging of where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah, like it wasn't some flaw in me or some thing that I just like, it just was a burden I was carrying that was just woven into my being from my mom and how she showed up in the world.
Yeah. I love it.
And you were able to accomplish that through visualization, like the kinds of work that you're wanting to do with clients.
Yep.
Well, that's fascinating.
I can see it. I can so see how I love it. I mean, to me, it makes total sense. And I love that you are saying soul. I'm very spiritual and how I approach things. So I'm just listening to you talk it's fun. And feel free too to use whatever word choice you want to use, whatever is like your truth.
That is my whole platform. So I try very hard to do that as much as possible.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So would you mind giving another example? Maybe somebody you recently worked with, maybe some of the key things that they came in that were in their tapestry that weren't serving them, and some unweaving and some reweaving that was done with them and the success of it.
I have worked with lots of people on authentic sexuality and really kind of unweaving this idea of compulsory heterosexuality and compulsory monogamy, and really kind of looking at the threads of those woven in their system and helping them unweave them and leave them behind so that they could more authentically partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then, right, there's like, once you unweave those threads, there's a lot of work around, oh, well, I'm not a person who does this. Wait, am I a person who does that? Right? Like, there's a lot of internal like allowance of unwrapping the chains and stopping to be curious about who you really are.
Yeah. This is something, I mean, like, I know you know all of this, Emy, but like even things as simple as like erectile issues, or orgasm, difficulties. I was mentioning it's never about sex, right? But a lot of people don't have the perspective to stand back and say, this isn't about me. This is about something else. So like men, I tell everybody, I get so many men in my office in their 20s and their 30s who come in, they sit down and they're distraught because they have erectile dysfunction, right? They've identified that they have erectile dysfunction. And then you start asking questions, and it's not erectile dysfunction. It's that they're like super anxious about having sex because there are all of these beliefs about how they should engage in partnered sex, what their penis should look like, what their penis should do. There's all of this pressure, and men, when they come to a partnered sexual encounter, they can't get it together because they're stuck in their head because of all of these messages. The society, patriarchy, is telling them about their penis and about this partnered sexual behavior. So I mean what you're saying is literally applied to everything, because we can't escape patriarchy. We are patriarchy in this society.
Yeah.
It takes like tremendous amount of psychoed.
Yes. I think, I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that, like, I don't think smashing the patriarchy happens externally. I think it starts internally, and unweaving those threads and learning to stand in our truth, learning to, if your penis doesn't look the way it should look, learning to accept and love whatever it does look like, and do what feels right, and what, what is right for you.
Yeah. I also want to say that there are these like gross misconceptions in our society about what it means to like smash the patriarchy. People think that all of these angry feminists are out there to like smash the patriarchy, when in fact, if we could hypothetically dismantle like the patriarchy, it would help everyone. Like, I would love that for my little boy who's 6 years old. Like, I don't want him growing up in this society. It's toxic. I don't want him having those thoughts about his penis or about partnered sexual activities. Like, I want him to go to a partnered sexual encounter and be like, we can just be the two of us, and we can have this interaction, and we can enjoy it, and we can communicate through it, and we can love it. But in this society, like the patriarchy isn't set up for those kind of encounters. So I just wanted to clarify that, because you said smash the patriarchy, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, now people are gonna like think that we're three radical feminists sitting around, a cauldron. Yeah. when in fact, like, it's, if we could smash the patriarchy, all of the little boys of the world would benefit greatly from it as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate the clarification, because I don't actually like that term, mostly because I'm a pretty nonviolent person. And I also think that this is deep soul healing work for all of us. And a deep unweaving versus a thing that can be barreled through with a hammer.
If only we could barrel through it with a hammer. Wouldn't that be easy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might leave some chaos though.
Chaos. So fascinating. And I'm getting back to my previous question. Could it be helpful for men? And all of this could be very helpful for men. And I'm so happy you're doing it with women.
I mean, I see myself getting to do it with men down the road, but I'm starting here.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I don't know. I just feel I'm a very optimistic person, though, in my viewpoint. I realize that most people are not as optimistic as I am about, like, I don't view our society and culture as this like awful negative thing like a lot of people do. I think I don't know. I think we're making so much awesome change too. But one thing I was going to say is just whenever I read books and you really break down the simplicity of, this is where I'm at least in my journey, is like, we've got this human body, and I view like the soul is just in this human body. This is how I view it. And it's just to allow us to enjoy this physical realm that we're on. But really like breaking down, not allowing this almost animalistic mammal brain to be what's in control of everything. And we're trying to like say, hey, no, spiritually, we can be up here and we can all be equal and we can respect each other and da 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 da. But then I also have understanding and respect that the mammal brain, this animalistic mammal brain, I get why patriarchy was formed. I understand why things are the way they are, why we give power to this and not power to that. For different genders, for different colors, for different socioeconomic status. Because I'm like, from a very basic brain level, the brain is wired to think that way. So we have to use this logical way of thinking, this prefrontal cortex, this more spiritually mature way of being able to look at things, to realize how silly the mammal brain is and how it looks at the world. So with patriarchy, I'm like, to me, I don't think it's possible for us to ever get rid of patriarchy, because we are in this physical body, and this physical body is what it is. So there will always be individuals who I think are at a more spiritually mature level who are going to be like, yeah, like, this is silly. Why are we thinking this way? But until I think as a whole, we are able to get our silly mammal brains to get on board with something so much bigger than the way it's wired to think from a biologic perspective. I just don't know that we'll ever get there. But I think we're moving in the right direction. That was a whole little tangent, but that's how when I'm hearing you talk, like, this is what my brain's thinking.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm like, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Okay. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, you, Molly, you get all of the like the side effects of patriarchy gone bad, right? So like women who come to you with like tremendous pelvic floor dysfunction because of their specific upbringing, right? Like you get the side effects of it. And I think in those cases, like you're able to do so much. You're able to like go and manipulate the muscles and teach them exercises to help them like loosen their pelvic floor muscles. But from what I've gathered, like you can do all of that and they can be quote unquote like healed. But if they don't work on
not
like,
the root cause. Yeah. The root cause is, so that's why I tell them, I'm like, we can do all the tissue work in the world and we have to do this. That's a part of it because you've done a lot of damage to your human body. But we have to work on the root cause, and the root cause is so much deeper. And some of my patients, it depends on where they're at. Like Emy was saying, where are they at in their journey? And are they ready to go there? Because some of them aren't. Some of them are super far behind in their ability to be there, but they trust me and they allow me to bring them there. And so these are women I work with for 2-3 years, and it's incredible to see where they are now. But everyone's just like, getting to that root cause. I do that work if they're open to doing that work. Some are not. Some are just like, I need to get in here. I need to have sex because my husband's getting mad and we want to have a baby. And I'm like, okay. And I'm realizing where they are in their development. And I'm like, okay, we're going to allow you to have sex. And I go, can we work on other things, or do you want to work on other things? And they say yes, but then they really don't. And so I'm like, okay, well, I can at least help you have a baby. I can help you with wherever you're at on your journey. And then I get to rehab them postpartum. And honestly, that's when the real work happens anyways. And it's so fun because the baby breaks you open. And now I'm like, now we can really rebuild.
breaks you up in so many different ways, right?
Really breaks you open.
I think also having a baby, going back to, Emy's analogy of the tapestry, like having a baby, I think grants a lot of women, like, oh shit, like I'm doing something that my mom did that caused like trauma. Like I am contributing to now my child's tapestry in the same way that my mom contributed to my tapestry. So perhaps that's like why they're more willing to do that work, because they're recognizing, intergenerational systems.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, so, Emy, you talked about losing your mom. I recently lost my mom as well. And it was funny when you were talking about the cooking, because my mom was such a good cook. And my sister-in-law took all of her recipes and made us all a book out of it. And so it's like one of my favorite things. And so for Christmas, I got my own recipe book that's not filled in. You have to fill it in yourself, handwritten. And I've been really cooking a lot lately. And it's been such a way to connect with my mom. But for me, I liked your analogy of how you said like your soul being kind of putting back the pieces. I love that. I don't know. I was like, I wonder if that's why I'm doing it, but I think I'm just doing it because it's a way to connect with my mom and to feel like I'm eating the food that she used to make for me. Just that, I love just a good home cooked food. Yeah, so like once you have your own child, you have to learn to mother. And that's a new skill. That's a huge skill. I mean, the amount of development in the brain during that time is astronomical when we have babies. And so when you start to learn to mother, then you actually really want your mom to mother you again. Almost like we go back to almost into an infancy state. And so when I lost my mom and had kids all at the same time, for me, that was wild. Because I was like, here I'm having to mother my kids. How do I want to mother them? How was I mothered? And I want to be mothered. And I wasn't able to be mothered. So then I had to learn how to mother myself. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, this is so fucking hard. Like, I don't know how to do this. Because my mom was such a loving mom. I was like, I never had to mother myself. She was always there for me. So I think that there's something beautiful about that. I think when women have kids and when they lose their primary caregiver, whether that's a mom or not, it forces you to really have to take a deep look, because now you have to do the mothering that you never had to do before.
Yeah, I think I haven't given birth to children, but I have lost my mom.
Yeah.
And I have 3 stepdaughters who are now adults. But I think those are 2 points where, like you said, you're kind of broken open. And the way I viewed it after my mom died was sort of like, it gave me sort of a zoomed out view of my entire tapestry. I think giving birth does a similar thing, right? Because you're kind of like, who you were is completely shattered, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
you may not use that word, but you're broken open in such a way that you have to create something new.
You have to create something new, no matter what. Yeah. I mean, after you lose your primary caregiver, the primary person that you felt that was, I don't know if your mom was that primary person who was your caregiver, your love. Yeah. I mean, your whole reality is now forever changed. What is it going to look like? And same with a child, like you'll never go back to being that woman you were before you had a baby. So what does it look like now? And that's a hard thing to figure out and process. But if you don't, then it's just storing in the body and not good.
Just keep it going, right? Like you either keep it going in yourself, or you give it on to, children or people that you're caregiving for.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have transgenerational trauma.
Yes, we do. Loads of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Molly, did you have any other questions for Emy, or any other insights? Or Emy, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Do you have anything else that you think would be important or something fun to talk about for our listeners?
I think I hit all the like super things that I love to talk about for the most part. I will say that I've got sort of 10 coaching packages available between now and the end of the year that I'm offering on a end of year payment option kind of thing. Just because I want, like, there's something in my heart and soul that says that this work needs to go to 10 more people before the end of the year. I know that sounds silly, but I tend to follow my intuition and follow what my soul and my guides are telling me. And for whatever reason, they're telling me that, like, there are 10 people that I'm needing to work with before the year closes out. And so if anyone is intrigued by this and wants to jump on a call to see if we're a fit, then I'm here.
And let me just also say, coaching is so much cooler than therapy, because coaches do not have to abide by these silly state laws. So Emy can see anyone, anywhere, which is incredible, because we've previously told listeners that I could only see clients in Florida because of our, the state laws around therapy.
I know, it's so funny. It's like the higher degree you have, like the more restrictions you have, but then you have these lower level credentialing can do like whatever they want. I was like, man, I should have just become a massage therapist and a personal trainer. I could still do what I'm doing now, but less note taking.
Yeah. I mean, the laws around, that's a whole nother talk. The laws around therapists and who they can see only serve to grant more funds to the state. So, I can see a great exit of therapists into the coaching world, because you can reach so many more people. It's incredible. So if you're listening in California or Nebraska, you can still use Emy for these coaching services.
Yep. And jump onto my 5-day Soulful Spark challenge to start your unweaving process.
How can they do that? How can they jump onto that challenge? What's the easiest way?
Hopefully you guys will have a link in the show notes, but it's emytafelski.com/spark.
Okay, we'll put a link. So if you guys want to join that, just click on the link and you will be set up in that way, which is perfect. Last little thing I want to ask, and then we can close out. By doing this work with women, which I love, by the way, I love my primary client I love working with is women, especially moms for sure. My question to you is, overall, like big goal, by working with these women to do what you said you're doing to help them, how do you feel like that benefits the universe, society as a whole?
I believe that authenticity can heal the world. I believe that, and there is research, but I'm not going to have citations, so we're just going to move on. Authenticity is related to well-being and life satisfaction and happiness and all the jazz. And so the more we can show up authentically in the world, and the more we can just be who we are, the less anxiety, the less depression, the less suffering the world will have, which, you know, if the three of us do that and then we influence, 10 people to do that, then ultimately we can heal the soul of the world by healing our own souls.
Yes, I agree. I love it. Just wanted to hear you say it.
I love to say it. I want to heal the world with authenticity. Woo!
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for everyone who's listening. I hope that you got some just awesome encouragement from this podcast and leave it feeling just your badass self that you are, men and women included, and non-binary included. And if there's any children listening, which you probably shouldn't be. But have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. We will talk to you all at the next podcast episode. Bye.
We are Dr. Molly Hart and Dr. Katie Schubert, and you've been listening to Sex on the Floor podcast. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions and want to get in contact with us, you can follow us on Instagram at Dr. Molly Hart and at Dr. Katie Schubert, on Facebook at Pelvic Balance PT and at Dr. Katie Schubert. And for more information about us on our websites, you can find us at pelvicbalancept.com and at drkatieschubert.com.